Now, one of my really favourite guests, I have to say, is a very clever lady called Liz Foster, who started a company called Quiz Trails. Started off in Kent, literally in the town where she was living at the time, in Rochester, but they've recently branched out in all parts. You can find them across Sussex and Surrey. And this little book you can pick up locally, which basically has a trail, a walking trail around where you live, including lots of historic spots, lots of facts, lots of really interesting things. You can wander around with your family and learn about your local area while you're getting fit and while you're getting some fresh air in your lungs. And I had to ask her how it all began, really, where the idea came from and how it started.
So it's my two daughters and myself. We used to like walk in and investigate. I think we're just probably nosy, really. And we started investigating where we were visiting. And we started in Rochester. And then what we would do was we would start investigating them and making little trails of things. And then COVID came along and then we went for it and started making them all over Kent. So we've got lots of them now.
And you're literally, the sky's the limit because you're now spreading your wings farther afield, aren't you?
We are, yes. We've gone in Sussex. We've just released Battle one. Now, that's interesting because rather than the usual just sort of town centre of Battle, we've got a route that takes you off round little back alleyways and things. Across to Eastbourne, we've got 8, I think, now in Surrey. So we've gone Epsom and Leatherhead and Dorking. It's like with all the places, once you start investigating them and digging into them, it's like finding, the most fantastic novel, and you're flicking through, finding all these things, and you think, wow, these things really happen. They're amazing.
And it must be frustrating for people when they realise they've been living in a place, not knowing the history, and then they do a quiz trail and think, gosh, I've been living here for 20 years.
Absolutely.
And I didn't know that about that spot that's 200 yards from my front door. I find it fascinating.
Exactly. And things like in Canterbury, I mean, the Beaney House, the House of Beaney, the Beaney Centre.
Yep, I know it well.
You know it, that's it. And it's the museum and it's the an art gallery and the visitor centre. Now, when we were looking at Canterbury, you think, well, who's Beaney? Who was Beaney? And when we found, you dig into it and find out, well, he was absolutely a complete eccentric. So he'd been born in Canterbury, James Beaney, got himself to Australia in the early 1800s, sort of trained to be a surgeon. Well, that's not an easy thing to achieve anyway, is it? And he was a drinker, and he would have people come and watch his surgeries. He would give them all claret and champagne. He would wear his jewellery, and he was known as Champagne Jimmy. And he was a complete eccentric. And that's Mr. Beaney of Beaney House in Canterbury.
Fantastic.
So when he died, he had his brother and sister still lived in Canterbury, and he left money for that building to be made and some money for repairs to be done to Canterbury Cathedral. So there is a memorial also inside the cathedral to him. And unless you start digging under the surface, there it sits, the history. So he was in Melbourne in Australia. There are memorials to him there as well. But his medical records were to diagnose people and to prescribe them alcohol.
That's why I was everybody's friend. I can see why now. It all fits into place, doesn't it? I'm just thinking, for people who don't know yet what a quiz trail is, we're talking about it and getting excited about it, but actually, let's take it right back to basics and that first one that you did in Rochester, because actually the producer I'm working with today spent many years living in Rochester. As well as explaining what the quiz trail is, that other people can join in and go and buy their own quiz trail for where they are in a local shop or bookshop or online, just tell me exactly what the concept was. You and your daughters there wanted to get out, stay fit during lockdown, and maybe if you want to, throw a fascinating little fact in about Rochester, because, as I say, Clara, my producer, I'm sure will appreciate that. She's a Rochester girl born and bred.
Lovely. Well, I mean, it was Rochester, and what they are is they're a walking trail. So it'll say start your walk here, and they're all printed books. We don't have digital and things. There's lots of those around, but we've printed books, and you follow the clues. So you go, this will take you to clue 1. You answer the clue of what you're observing, and they're adult clues, and they're also children's clues, but they're fun clues. So we play on words. We do all sorts of observation things and all sorts of different types of clues. So it's not just walking around asking the same question in different locations, and it'll take you all around Rochester. And obviously Rochester is associated with Charles Dickens, as everybody knows, and that's where he wanted to be buried. But he was actually then buried from Queen Victoria, and the press of the day weren't happy with him having a very quiet funeral, which is what he wanted. And so he was buried in Westminster Abbey in Poets' Corner, with a massive London parade and everything like that. But actually, at his actual funeral, he only had 12 people there.
Oh.
But the interesting thing as well is, I mean, when we do our history, we like history and we like to state the facts, but we like to know a little bit about the people. So he was an interesting one in that his marriage, he had 10 children with his wife Catherine and lived just outside Rochester. 10 children over the years, as they did back then. That's
wow.
what they did.
Gosh, no birth control, I suppose, and no television. That was the thing. Nothing to distract you.
Exactly. So then after the marriage ended, he'd met Ellen Turner, an actress who he'd met in London. But actually, as it turned out, and then he went on to sort of have a relationship with her until the end of his days, and she was quite a lot younger than him. But as it turned out, she was actually born in Rochester, just quite by chance, had been born there, because her family had been visiting an uncle who lived in the High Street, and there she'd been born all those years after his, success and everything. So things all sort of link, and obviously with Charles Dickens, you get him all over Kent. He pops up, he's obviously Broadstairs. Then you go to Folkestone, he's there. There's Dover, there's Clarks where he stayed there. He went all over Kent. He obviously very much liked his visits to Kent. So yeah, and we've got bank holiday on Monday, so we can thank. We just brought out our Maidstone Trail. That's
congratulations, lovely.
Last week. Yeah,
what's the most interesting thing on the Maidstone Trail that people living in Maidstone wouldn't necessarily have known about? What's right there?
Yeah, so one of the things I like visually there is that when you're by the Archbishop's Palace, if you go down some steps there, underneath where the road goes over, there's a bridge there from the 1300s that's actually under the road and you can see it. Now, that's amazing, isn't it? And also, the bank holiday that we're going to enjoy on Monday, we can thank Maidstone MP Sir John Lubbock for that, because up until 1870, workers at that time only had, I think it was Boxing Day they got off from Good Friday. I don't think it was even Christmas Day. I think it was Boxing Day, but I might be wrong on that. And then he brought in the Bank Holidays Act of 1871, and all of a sudden everybody had 6 bank holidays paid a year.
Small round of applause for him. Round of applause.
Maidstone MP for that.
Hurrah! And my other favourite fact that you did tell me about a year ago, I think, when you came on, that a very famous tipple that many people could have in their hands right now on this sunny Saturday afternoon, there's nothing more appropriate, actually has its roots in Kent, which, having drunk loads of the stuff, I didn't realise.
Absolutely. Now, James Pym came from just outside Sittingbourne. So he's buried at East Peckham. But he was from just outside Sittingbourne, and he'd invented it as a fruit sort of punch drink to go. He was running restaurants in London, and he invented it. And I'd never noticed until I was looking into it that, of course, Pym's is Pym with an apostrophe S.
It is.
I just always thought it was Pym, but it is Pym apostrophe S. It's his drink.
Well, we're very grateful to him as well, and particularly on a sunny day like this. I love chatting to you, Liz. Yes. Where can people find your books and these quiz trails if they want to go out and learn a bit about the town you live in?
Absolutely. So we've got them, most areas have got a stockist. So we've got a website, which is www.quiztrail.co.uk. And people can go onto there or just search Quiz Trail, Kent Quiz Trails, or Surrey Quiz Trails, or East Sussex Quiz Trails, and then they will find our website. And then on there, it's at the top, it's got local stockists. So we try and coordinate. We've got lots, like the Beaney Centre are selling them in Canterbury, all sorts of visitor places. And if you go on there, you can find your local stockist for where you live. And we keep the price low. They're only $5.99 each, and you only need one copy for everyone to share. So they're not... Excellent. It's a very low-cost activity to all do together.